All right, we're going to start. Welcome to the Bakken Museum. My name is Jen Hensley. I am the president and CEO here at the museum, and I am here to welcome you. I'm going to say we're here in the heart of Ward 7. I am also a resident of Ward 7, so I'm glad you're here. How many of you have been to the Bakken Museum before? Wonderful. Hopefully you all know it's our 50th year we've been around and in this location since 1975. So we are celebrating that this year. We're glad you're here tonight. We also want to extend an invitation. We have a celebration of our 50th birthday the second weekend in October with lots of fun, free events. So please check those out. But thank you for being here. Thank you for coming over the years. And let's get on with our evening.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Bakken Museum for hosting this. I am sure it's going to be an electrifying night. All right. All right. Hold your applause. Okay. So, good evening on this beautiful summer night, and welcome to the Ward 7 City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Pam Talene, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters Minneapolis, but I am not a resident of Ward 7. And I'm pleased to be here tonight in this great crowd. This is wonderful. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization with a long history of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that is widely used by voters regardless of their political parties and beliefs. This forum is sponsored by several groups. It is sponsored by the Bryn Mawr Neighborhood Association, West Makaska Neighborhood Council, Community Power, the Bakken Museum, and the League of Women Voters Minneapolis. The views expressed are those of the candidates and not those of the League or any of the sponsors. Neither the League of Women Voters nor its co-sponsors endorses or oppose candidates or parties. We're holding this forum for the voters, for you, to hear from the candidates and to compare their ideas. The forum is being held in front of a live audience, very live audience, and it's also being videotaped for people who want to watch it later. It's being live streamed on the League of Women Voters YouTube channel. This is a forum and not a debate. That means the candidates are asked questions to which they will respond directly to the audience and not to each other. The recording of this forum will be available in its entirety after the forum, and we will have, we'll have closed caption options available in multiple languages. So if you know anybody who is not here tonight and speaks another language, be sure and take advantage of that. And I want to thank MCN6, who are doing our production and recording for tonight. We do ask that no campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts be visible, so I don't see any from here, but it's a big crowd. If you see somebody with campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts, please ask them to cover them up. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are talking so that everyone can hear the discussion. We also asked you to hold your applause until the very end of the forum so the candidates have the maximum amount of time to respond. And finally, please silence all of your electronic devices. When I do a forum, I like to explain what the ward is. And I know this is a huge ward, and so some of you who may live in one part of it might not know just how many different things are involved in this ward. Ward 7 is located on the western edge of Minneapolis. It's a very diverse ward with historic residential neighborhoods and downtown centers of business, housing, and entertainment linked by important commercial and residential corridors. Ward 7 contains the neighborhoods of Bryn Mawr, Cedar Isles Dean, Downtown West, East Isles, Kenwood, Linden Hills, Loring Park, Lowry Hill, Stevens Square, Loring Heights, and West Makaska. So it's a big ward. There are 13 city parks within the confines of Ward 7, and 11 public schools, and libraries, and several, as you know, city lakes. Housing is quite varied. It ranges from large family homes to dense, high-rise apartments and condominiums. People of all ages and interests work and live in this vibrant ward. All of the candidates that will be on the ballot were invited to the forum tonight, and 2 of them are with us. So in alphabetical order, the candidates for this position are Katie Cashman, Elizabeth Schaefer, and Corey Best. We thank the candidates in advance for engaging in respectful and civil discourse. We have timekeepers sitting in the front of the room here who will be keeping track of the answers, and we ask that we want it to be fair that each candidate has the exact same amount of time to answer all of the questions. Following 1-minute opening statements, 1.5-minute opening statements, they will then have 1 minute to answer each of the questions. The timekeepers will hold up a card when there are 15 seconds remaining and a stop card when the time is up, as exhibited over here. And we ask the candidates to finish the sentence that you're in the midst of when the stop sign comes up, but then to honor the stop sign. We expect this forum to last 1 hour. The questions tonight are based on community concerns and were developed by our committee, submitted in advance from co-sponsor surveys, and solicited from the community at large. During the forum, we will take written questions from the audience. We've already had quite a few, so it's a very engaged audience. That's wonderful. And we will stop taking any written questions at 7:45. A volunteer will gather the questions if you have cards, and I see her walking with the cards there. If you have filled out a card, tell one of our volunteers. We ask that your questions be clear, pertinent to the issues at hand, and within the scope of the office that we are voting for here tonight, or hearing from here tonight. And we want you to ask your questions in the form of a question, not a statement. All questions are carefully reviewed by our question reviewers up here and rewritten if necessary to make sure that they're directed to the candidates, they're forward-looking, they're not biased, and they're not of a personal nature. We look for a balance of topics that affect all of us, both locally and in the city as a whole. To get as many topics as possible, we will limit the number of questions for each category, and we might consolidate questions into under a general topic. If you feel your question is not addressed tonight, please feel free to come up and talk to the candidates themselves at the end of the evening. Now we will begin with our opening statements, and for the opening statement, we ask that you address this question: why are you running, and what are your qualifications? The women drew numbers at the beginning, and our first person to answer will be Elizabeth Schaefer.
Thank you. First things first this evening, happy birthday, Councilmember Cashman. 32. Thank you all for coming out tonight. This is really exciting to see a full house, and for League of Women Voters for hosting us this evening. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Elizabeth Schaefer. Few things about me personally. I have been a Lowry Hill resident for 13 years. My husband and I have 4 adult children, the youngest of which is a Minneapolis firefighter. I am a former teacher, and I am currently most of your Ward 7 Park Commissioner for District 4. I have been your Park Commissioner for the last 4 years. It has been a privilege, a joy. I have put my heart and soul into this work. I have been responsive. I have listened to your concerns and have advocated for every single of the 13 neighborhoods that I represent. So I am proud to be with you here this evening and putting my name forward for City Council. My hope is to bring the same kind of leadership that I have demonstrated to you the last 4 years on the Park Board to the City Council. I want to bring pragmatism, common sense, responsiveness, and a spirit of collaboration that together we can bring forward the long-range health of our city in a dynamic and collaborative way.
Katie Cashman.
My name is Katie Cashman. I'm proud and humbled to be your Ward 7 City Council member, and I'm running for re-election this November. I live in Loring Heights with my partner Brandon and our dog Hazel. I grew up in Northeast Minneapolis, and my family has a long history and strong roots in this city. I spent the majority of my professional career before City Council working for the United Nations, advancing urban sustainability in cities all over the world. With my language skills in Spanish and French, I was able to support cities in Sub-Saharan Africa and in Latin America, as well as Europe and here. In 2020, like many of you, I threw myself into community organizing to really make a difference in our city, and got involved with environmental justice policy, both at the city and at the state level. In 2023, I ran for city council, and with your support was elected. And time again in the last couple of years, I have stepped up to meet the moment for our ward, advocate for our priorities, bring about change in our city, and I'm excited to share my vision for the next 4 years with you tonight, as well as talk about what some of the key priorities are that the city is moving forward on. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay. All right, we move on. And I do ask that you not applaud until the end of the evening. All right, our first question tonight is, what personal qualities and skills do you possess that make you the best candidate to balance the diverse and sometimes competing needs of the different neighborhoods in Ward 7? Katie Cashman.
Thank you. I consider myself to be an ethical and effective leader. And what that means for me is leading with action and leading with transparency. We may not agree on everything, and in fact, that's the very nature of politics. But how we respect one another and move through those differences is really what matters. As a collaborator on the City Council, I've been proud to author ordinances with every other council member in the last year and a half. And that includes Councilmember Rainville, working on office to residential conversions downtown. That includes Councilmember Palmisano, legalizing boulevard gardening. And that includes Councilmember Vita, when we restricted tobacco sales in our city. And I've been able to get the mayor's support for many of my priorities on the council, including dance funding and vibrant storefronts, and I look forward to continuing to collaborate with the full spectrum of our city council and our state legislature to get things done.
Elizabeth.
I would say one of the things my family has always said about me is I am a very persevering person. I am willing to dig into the details and learn and grow and continue to give in situations that are something I'm familiar with and something maybe I'm growing into. So I will have a commitment of perseverance to this job that I have demonstrated on the park board. When there is a roadblock, I look for a way to go around. That is the way I have operated. As far as representing a diverse constituency, the District 4 is much more diverse than Ward 7. We include a lot of the Elliott Park neighborhood, Whittier. I myself personally have lived in the Phillips neighborhood and the Wedge over the years. So I look forward to continuing those relationships that I have developed and continuing to persevere and give back to the community.
Thank you. Next question. As a city council member, what steps can be taken to improve accountability, timeliness, and transparency in response to calls made to 311 non-emergency service? And Elizabeth, you'll go first.
Accountability for responding to 311 calls is something that I know we all deal with. Investigators are of short supply right now on the Minneapolis Police Department, and we all have had situations where we cannot have a response time like we would like. So as far as accountability, I would think I would need to learn more about that, figure out how the call structure happens for 311, and continue to follow up with residents on how to improve those processes.
Katie?
Thank you. Our 311 service is really critical. It's actually a core service of our emergency response system. And actually a big tenet of making 311 more accessible is teaching folks how to use it, which is a big part of my job in community engagement. There is an app for 311, which I hope some of you will consider downloading tonight. but more we need folks to use 311 in order to prevent situations in the city from getting worse over time. We need to also make sure that our 311 operators are not closing tickets before they're actually complete, which is something that I hear feedback on from residents often. And we also need to use innovation to make our 311 system more responsive, with automatically shifting the messages coming into 311 to the appropriate departments. We have a great 311 director who I know is up to the job, and with continued feedback, we'll continue to improve.
Thank you. Next question. What is your approach to constructively using different points of view on the city council to make up policy for the city? We all know there are varying points of view on the city council. And Katie, you'll go first.
I think a good way to think about this question is about housing policy, which is one of the main things that the city is really in charge of. And I really thank a lot of the housing advocates in Ward 7. Just for example, they have brought many issues of housing to my attention. And there's not a one-size-fits-all for housing. So when it comes to keeping rents low, some folks advocate for rent control. That's not my approach. Another approach is providing more supply of housing in the city. And in order to get more supply, we need to change our zoning to remove barriers to building more housing in our city. So there's always more than one way to get to a solution to a problem. And when we work together with advocates and those impacted by this problem, that's how we're able to advance towards shared goals.
Elizabeth.
I think the number one thing that we can do as electeds with people that have a differing viewpoint than our own is to listen and to respect that viewpoint. They were also elected as a member of the dais, and we need to be able to listen to and respect one another's viewpoints in order to bring each other together. One thing that hasn't happened is a lot of strategic planning with this current board. There has been a difficulty of relationships and a little bit of dysfunction and back and forth. And I hope that if my leadership is elected to the city council, that I will bring that spirit of respect to every single person who differs than me, because that's my job. We need to compromise. We need to work together. We cannot have the gridlock that we have been seeing, because it is Minneapolis residents that suffer.
Thank you. Next question. During this campaign, we have heard about the needs of renters, homeowners, businesses, and others. All of these live in our ward. How would you represent the needs of the entire ward? Elizabeth.
Thank you for that question. First of all, I will not dichotomize my residents between homeowners and renters. We are all together. We have a common goal. Some of our values are different. Some of their priorities are different. But we need to come together and to be inclusive and encourage one another. I am pro-renter. I would have supported the algorithmic ban for renter software that happened. That is a high rental community priority, and I would have voted to support that ban on algorithmic software. I will support protecting our property tax increases. That affects renters and homeowners. We have got to mitigate this commercial downturn of revenue that we're seeing and not keep it from affecting all of us who feel those pressures.
Thank you. Katie?
So I actually want to start this question by saying that my opponent did fill out an application for a corporate PAC to support her in this race, and answered a question on whether she would support new renters' rights with "no new renters' rights are needed," which I think is pretty abysmal in a ward that is 60% renter. Renters' rights are a key way that we empower our renter community to take control of their lives, to stabilize, to bring value to their neighborhoods. I myself am a renter, and I've been proud to advance many renter protections this year, including one just next week that we'll be introducing that stops the Tier 3 properties from being able to pass through rental clearance as easily as they have. And tier 3 properties are those in the worst condition that are allowing their buildings to suffer from mold and flooding and broken windows and all sorts of other conditions that everyone in our city deserves to have dignity in their housing.
Thank you. Speaking of housing, the next section will be housing questions. Do you think Minneapolis's broad efforts to address our unhoused, including safe housing, public safety, and social services, are working effectively? If so, why? And if not, what would you change? Katie.
Unsheltered homelessness is a public health crisis. We all know this. And yet, the residents of our city who are experiencing homelessness are being punted around like a political football. Some say, that's the county's job, and others say, that's the mayor's job, and others say, that's the city council's job. It's all of our job. It is all of our job. Housing is a matter of life or death for these people, and I'm not exaggerating. The best solutions that we have to advancing unsheltered homelessness and providing stability for those residents is through culturally relevant organizations, housing organizations like Bimoseda that helps Native residents get on their feet, like the Women's Indian Resource Center, like Avivo Village. And every level of government has to step up to fund these organizations and support housing first so that people have a roof over their head at night. It is a basic human right.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I agree completely that it is an issue that we are facing and a complete need that we need to face head on. Number one, I believe we have got to work with our federal, state, and county partners. We have got to hold them to the table. We are experiencing this end of this year a decrease significantly in funding for health and human services through the county. This will affect Minneapolis head on. We need to have our heads up. We need to be preparing for this. I am really proud of the record the Park Board has had around encampments. From the year 2021, we have had a systematic program of really working with our unhoused population, with the community that we have called Street Reach, individually, relationship-based. When there are issues, they reach out and try to connect them to housing.
Thank you. Commercial property values have declined relative to residential. This has caused significant property tax increases for homeowners and renters. How will you address this issue? Elizabeth.
Yes, our property tax increases 10 years ago, in total, were 300 million. They are now 500 million. The percentage of that commercial element of that number was 30% pre-COVID. It is now 15%. This differential is coming on the residential and the apartment multi-unit owners with full force. And I can tell you that we have two options when we have a loss of revenue. We can continue to look for ways to increase revenue, like raise taxes, or we can look for ways to belt tighten, where we can look for ways to reprioritize and help us through a difficult period of time. But we're not through this process yet. The next 4 years are really going to need some mature leadership in the area of fiscal responsibility and really look at how can we mitigate this impact of the commercial downturn from affecting residents and renters.
Okay. Katie?
So I focused a lot on downtown in the last couple of years because that is really where the commercial properties are that have significantly dropped in value. Some of our office towers have sold at 10% of the value that they had pre-COVID because office workers just aren't coming back into the office the way that they used to in a 9 to 5 downtown. So I've shifted and moved the needle towards a 24/7 downtown. So what does that look like? Converting office buildings into housing is a long-term solution to getting the value of those buildings back up so that residents throughout the city aren't footing the bill for the full scope of property taxes. I'm proud that just in the last year, we have developments at the lumber exchange, the flower exchange, and the grain exchange 3 former warehouses in Ward 7 that are converting into housing, and will be providing thousands of units of new housing for residents at both family level scale, supportive housing scale, and luxury market rate scale, the full spectrum of housing options.
Thank you. Okay. What can be done to make housing more affordable? Katie.
I love housing, so I really appreciate all these questions. I serve on the Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee, and we've done a lot of work to advance inclusionary zoning, which is how we protect affordability in our city. It means that when you are developing a new building, you have to dedicate 30% of those units to levels of income that are, median level of income below 60% AMI. The other option is to, instead of keeping that affordability level, you give the city money. And we use that money through our Affordable Housing Trust Fund to support deeply affordable housing projects. So in the past year, we have expanded inclusionary zoning. Even though some wanted us to scale it back, we really dug in and moved forward with that, expanding inclusionary zoning into student housing as well, so that we can welcome more young people, more students to actually live in our city as they're attending schools in our city.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yes, right now the private market is not building much market rate housing in our city and is underproducing on affordable housing. So and partly that is due to national trends around interest rates and the cost of construction. But for us to continue to encourage affordable housing, we need to follow what the mayor has set forth the last few years around number one, that Councilmember Cashman has mentioned already, Affordable Housing Fund, commercial to residential transitions where feasible and financially feasible. But we need to look for opportunities for first-time home buyers as well. We lose a lot of families in Minneapolis when the time comes for families to settle down and want to buy a home. So we need to not only just increase our rental affordable housing, which that has been the primary housing that we have incentivized the last 10 to 15 years. We need to now shift that and think about where we can incentivize first-time home buyers.
Okay, we're going to shift now to some questions about climate. What specific actions have you taken in public service, professional work, or community engagement to address climate change? And if elected to represent Ward 7, what concrete steps will you prioritize to help Minneapolis reduce emissions, build climate resilience, and advance environmental justice?
A couple of things that I'm proud about that we have done on the park board is, number one, we opened our first net zero building in Graco Park. I also serve on a joint committee with the Minnehaha Creek Watershed, the city, and the park board, really thinking about the whole scope of how we can affect water quality throughout the watershed, from where it enters Cedar Lake all the way down to where it enters the Mississippi. And lastly, I'm very interested in aging our urban canopy. Right now, many of our public infrastructure projects have this they start with the design and think about trees later. When Hennepin Avenue did their redesign, myself, members of the community, and others worked together to save 70 trees by determining a carbon value for each one of those trees. In the future, I would love for the city to need to pay the park board for every tree that is taken down and the carbon value for that tree.
Okay, thank you. Katie?
Well, before I was on the city council, I was an environmental justice organizer and was at the city council day in and day out lobbying for dedicated climate funding. Some people at the time said, oh, you should just let the national government take care of that. And I completely disagree. We can't count on the federal government for anything. We have to take matters into our own hands locally. We passed $10 million in dedicated climate funding. When I joined the city council in 2024, I fought for the position of Climate and Infrastructure Committee Chair so that I could oversee the distribution of those funds. I also serve on the Clean Energy Partnership with Xcel and Centerpoint. My vision for a just climate future is clean air, clean water, and clean energy. Clean water in all of our lakes, clean air by retiring polluting facilities in our city, and clean energy, making sure every single home and commercial building is powered by renewable energy. And that's the work that I'm committed to doing for the next 4 years.
Thank you. How will you address the cost increases to constituents and businesses resulting from current utility franchises? Katie.
So we're right now working on an adjustment to our franchise fee ordinance, which would actually parse out the different levels and structures of who pays those increases. And we are going to make sure that it is the larger industries with larger amounts of money that are going to pay more for their pollution instead of residents like yourself. So when we talk about climate equity, that's the equity part. The equity part is making sure that polluters pay, not everyday residents like yourselves. And I really hope we can get this ordinance done by the end of the year. We'll have a meeting about it on Thursday, 1:30, Public Service Building. All are welcome.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yes, I know, Councilmanager Cashman, you worked hard on the utility franchise fee agreement. We currently get about $10 million from that. I believe that we really need to protect residents. It is really a regressive tax, almost worse than property taxes, for someone's utility bill to go up and up just because of a franchise fee adjustment. So we need to work with the state as well as ourselves and think about other municipalities. How can we really encourage the energy burden of low-income families to be around 6%? I think that's our target goal for what they would like to pay for their utilities, what they can afford. So I would be very supportive of a state initiative to try to encourage that. We cannot, we have to be super sensitive to this because we're investing in our green zones, first and foremost, which we need to do with our utility franchise money, but it can't mean that we're putting undue burden on those folks that we're trying to help.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to a more general topic about business. What new or continuing strategies would you recommend for revitalizing Uptown? What would you prioritize for the next 2 years? And how will you measure success? Elizabeth?
I think the very first building block that we need to start with in revitalizing our downtown and Uptown is a city council who is willing to have a relationship with small business owners. We can be yes and. Right now, we can be yes and help our businesses and listen to their voices and not ignore them. And we can say yes to labor. We believe in fair wages. We believe in project contracts, right? We are against wage theft. We can be yes and. So we need a council that is going to stand up and be willing to work with both. This council has been openly very anti-business. And we need to become a place and a city that is more competitive and welcoming so that we have small businesses to shop at as residents and don't have to drive to St. Louis Park. Sorry.
Katie?
Thank you. So the question was about Uptown, and as someone who worked in Uptown while I was growing up at Uptown Diner, there are many businesses along this corridor that are so near and dear to my heart, and we have to do everything to keep the businesses we have while supporting new ones. The budget amendments that I put forward last year put over $1 million towards Uptown, and some of those initiatives include funding the farmers market that we had this year, which brought a lot of foot traffic into Uptown. It also funded the Open Streets Festival that's going to be happening on Hennepin this Saturday. And it also includes the Vibrant Storefronts Initiative, which we just launched our second cohort of 8 entrepreneurs who are given grants to start businesses in specific formerly vacant commercial spaces. So in Uptown, that means you'll be seeing 3 new businesses at Lake and Hennepin who are being supported by the city. This is how we take the many steps that it takes to revitalize a neighborhood, and I look forward to continuing to rebuild Uptown.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we just had a note from somebody that they were having trouble seeing the candidates, and I want to tell you that if you'd like to move up closer, we'll find you a chair, if that really is a problem, or would you like the candidates to stand?
There's a chair here.
Okay, it'd be harder for them for reaching the microphone. So there's a chair in front here, there's another chair in this row. So if you'd like to move up, or if you're standing already and you want to sit, there are chairs up front. Okay, go on with the next question. One option being discussed for Nicollet Mall is to convert it to a pedestrian-only mall. Where do you stand on this idea, and explain why you stand there? Katie.
I think that pedestrian-only spaces are generally very positive and good for business, good for residents. However, there are many folks who rely on transit on Nicollet Mall, including 5 bus lines that are the most popular bus lines in the entire metro region. So there are a lot of people impacted by a decision to permanently move the buses off. The city has not done the work yet of identifying where those alternative routes would be, what the stations would be like, how easily all of those buses are going to fit onto Hennepin and 3rd and Marquette where they're proposed. So there's still more work to be done. In the meantime, I'm very supportive of occasional detours of the buses, such as Dinner du Nord and these events that have been happening on Nicollet Mall, as well as a really seasonal approach to this for the summer when we have the most outdoor activity. It's a really good time to activate Nicollet Mall with events.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the staff report that'll be coming forward in a few months to learn more about the transit impacts as well as what their footprint is. I actually would be open to this idea as long as it is a targeted, small footprint in order to really make sure that it's successful. With the idea, maybe it could expand, but we have to look at all elements. One thing that's really important to me as an elected official is to take all of the input from all of the various sources into my decision making. And so this would be one of those where I would listen to both the transit concerns as well as the ideas from the restaurants maybe of how we can really make this happen. Make it more of a hub for activity like we saw at Dinner du Nord. I actually attended that event and was really excited to see 2,000 people down this stretch because it cast a vision for what we will be. But we are excited about looking into those options, both ways.
Okay, thank you. What should the City Council do to help support, maintain, and retain businesses, particularly small businesses who are struggling with construction and crime?
In our budget this year, the City Council passed a lot of budget amendments, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So many that the mayor vetoed the budget, which we corrected for. But one of those amendments was really great. It was brought forward by our council vice president, Aisha Chugtai. And it created a fund for businesses that are impacted by construction, $800,000. If the business can prove that they lost income because of the impacts of construction, which we all know is true on Hennepin, then they could get reimbursed by the city. And this is the type of anti-displacement measure that we are flexing our muscles on as we develop more transportation projects in our city. It's really important that we're able to compensate businesses for the loss that they suffer when transportation projects happen. And I really look forward to the mayor and CPED department implementing this pilot and seeing how we can use it for future transportation projects as well.
Elizabeth?
The main thing that I heard from small business owners through the Hennepin Avenue reconstruction, and this will be happening at other places in our ward upcoming in the years, is that there was a lack of communication. There was a lack of communication both with the council office and with city staff and with construction project staff. And so I know what those lack of communications are like because I have represented the Southwest Light Rail through their construction project the last 4 years. And there are misses in communication when you are managing a large construction crew, when you are managing a huge project, right? When you're managing a huge infrastructure project. So for me, communication is number one Whether that happens directly through me as a elected, or whether we have a part-time or full-time community person that would do that for us, but we need to have those communications so that construction projects know, I need to know. Just like Southwest Light Rail knew, I need to know.
Thank you.
I need to know.
Thank you. Now we move to public safety. And given what you know about Ward 7, what are the Ward's 2 top community safety concerns, and how would you address these concerns? Elizabeth.
Well, I think about our ward specific. I would say Nicollet Avenue would be our top safety concern right now in the area that runs by Lotus in Loring Park. I have heard noise ordinance violations along that stretch. I've been on some of the Nicollet Avenue safety community meetings hearing about this with Sheriff Witt, who I am proud to have her endorsement. That is one of the target areas, I would say, in our ward specifically, is what I'm hearing right now is top of mind. Safety concerns, I think also that I hear in our ward is just the inability for us to be able to follow up on property crimes. That's not really high, it's not violent crime, but it's still something that we as residents would like to see improvement on, right? We know we have a lower staff right now, but we need to be able to demonstrate that we're making progress in the area so that when we, have a bike stolen or a garage broken into, that we are making progress.
Okay. Thank you. Katie?
Well, I had a 3-hour meeting with the chief today, so a lot of the stats on how our public safety department is doing are really top of mind for me right now. One thing that's going really well in terms of public safety is police recruitment. We passed a 22% raise for officers last year, and we've hired 150 new officers just this year. While there are some that are still retiring, that's really good progress. What is not going quite as well is investigations. And I hear it from residents in Ward 7 all the time. When they file a police report, they don't hear back. They don't hear how the case was actually resolved, and they can't find closure on the crime that they experienced. And so investigations are a huge priority for me right now. The third part is response times. We still have the same 911 response times that we've had for the last couple of years. And as we staff up our department, it's really important that we have our case clearance rates and our response times improving.
Thank you. The city contracts with community violence interrupter groups to help prevent serious conflicts, reduce violence, and improve public safety. How will you support and monitor the effectiveness of these groups? Katie.
We have a lot of really great violence prevention programs at the city. Violence interrupters are one of those types of services. There are others, like our hospital-based program that addresses victims of non-fatal shootings and helps them before they're going back onto the street to stop them from retaliating. We are trying to prevent gun violence from continuing to proliferate in our city. We also do direct community outreach. A new contract is starting in Stevens Square with Somali Youth Link. These are Somali elders who are engaging directly with younger Somali folks in the community. And this is not a violence interrupter contract, but it is within the scope of our violence prevention services. Personally, I would like to see us move away from the violence interrupter service and more towards these preventative services that are case-based by individuals. Violence interrupters do still play a very key role for us downtown with our late night work, especially in the warehouse district, but it's a little harder to do oversight over these contracts than it is with some of the others.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, ever since the murder of George Floyd, our alternative policing budget has really increased. We've gone from $3 million to $23 million. And we've taken a stand in saying we're going to explore every tool in the toolkit for our communities to be safe and to be thoughtful. And so what I would say is we need to now evaluate that $23 million. We need to recognize that the foundation of our public safety is our first responders. It's fire, it's police, it's behavioral crisis unit. But now we need to step back and look which of these, using data, Which of these are working, which of these are not working? And right now, we've heard inklings that the Community Violence Interrupters program is maybe the weakest link. So we need to get more data. We need to make sure that we're doing a procurement process that's vetted and fair and transparent. And we also, the other side is to have the accountability for those groups once they have the contract.
Great, thank you. We are now at the time, 7:45, that we won't be taking any more questions, so you can relax and not worry about thinking of a question to ask. Okay, the next question is that's already been written. Residents are concerned with the increased gun violence in our community. As a city council member, what specific policies or partnerships could you advocate for to help reverse this trend and respond to citizens' needs for safer communities? Elizabeth.
Timely question, as there were 5 people shot this afternoon at the entrance of the Greenway. Again, this is a scourge on our city. Gun violence is a scourge on our city. And we as elected officials need to start taking it seriously. We've had it in the parks, and every time it happens, it weighs on me. We need to begin to be advocating at the state level in ways to be able to really see real change, working across the aisle, bringing people together to ban semi-automatic weapons, to encourage some of these magazines to be banned. So I am really all in on this. I am a gun sense candidate with Moms Demand Action. I want to be a part of the solution because our citizens have been waiting for a long time. And we need to be thoughtful on what we can do as a city as well as how we can support the state.
Thank you. Katie?
The last few weeks have been extremely heavy when it comes to gun violence, both today and a couple weeks ago at Annunciation. As a former Catholic school student, that really hit home for me and was a really, really difficult day. Since then, the city council and the mayor have truly stepped up to advocate on behalf of the families that were impacted. And we passed a resolution last week that calls on the governor to arrange a special session to ban assault rifles. We co-authored that, unified as a council, and the mayor signed it. We are truly coming together around this issue, and I'm proud of that. Just today, State Senator Zainab Mohammed launched her working group at the state level with Senator Ron Latz to address this. I want to thank her for her leadership in stepping up. I'm also proud to be endorsed by Senator Zainab Mohammed and to be a Moms Demand Action gun sense candidate. We need to come together around this issue, and the time to take action is now.
Thank you very much. The next category is infrastructure and transportation. How specifically can City Council work with Public Works to integrate pedestrian-scale design elements like lighting, landscaping, and pavers that strengthen the sense of place while supporting walking, biking, and transit? Katie.
Thank you. I chair the infrastructure committee at the city, so I work with Public Works on a daily basis. One of our big priorities as a council has been traffic calming, and it's very popular in the ward. We receive thousands of applications for traffic calming every single year. This can be anything from a speed bump to a bump out or another method of really just slowing down vehicles on our neighborhood streets. So what I heard was lighting, landscaping, and another solution. I thank whoever asked this question and would be happy to work with you on a neighborhood scale improvement, whether it's on your street or on your neighbor's street. There's really a lot of options that we have to get the speed limit down to 20, which is plenty, and prevent vehicle deaths and accidents in our city.
Okay. Elizabeth?
Yes, this has been a priority for us as the park board. One of the things we implemented or are in process of implementing, and the donor might be in the audience, is a new speed flashing sign that will tell your speed along the western edge of Cedar Lake. That has been a particularly difficult area as people come around the curve right by the parking lot by the beach. So we're working on very specific things like that that we can help with before the long-range plan is implemented. We also tried this summer our pilot program for parkway enforcement, where one officer was assigned all summer doing noise ordinance violations, speeding tickets, impaired driving pullovers, all summer long across the parkways on our system. And we heard a lot of positive feedback about that because of the lack of that happening and the time available for MPD to do traffic enforcement. So yes, infrastructure is a core, important priority for us to save lives.
Thank you. Okay, the city's Transportation Action Plan goal is that by 2030, 60% of the trips in the city will be taken on public transit or made by biking and walking. Do you support this policy, and if so, how do you accommodate the needs of drivers and people with less physical mobility? Elizabeth.
I do support these goals. I am really proud of some of the active groups that are even here. Bryn Mawr's Active Transportation Committee, who are actually doing work on the ground to move this goal forward in their communities, and I want to applaud them for their work. Hosting bike rides to West End grocery stores, inspiring people to walk and bike and take alternative means of transportation. So yes, I do strongly support these goals. At the same time, this is how I lead. We need to listen to all stakeholders in the discussion around infrastructure changes, et cetera, and know what are the trade-offs that we have if we put a certain kind of infrastructure in this area. What are we giving up? What are we gaining? So we all have a voice, but pedestrians are number one. We have that in state statute. They have the right-of-way. So I am looking forward to promoting these goals with on-the-ground community groups.
Okay, thank you. Katie?
We do have a great goal, 60% of trips taken by active or public transportation means, and the way that we get there is through complete streets. I used to work at Sierra Club, and we developed this policy about 10 years ago, which the city of Minneapolis is now implementing. A complete street is one like the future Hennepin Avenue, which will be opening up soon. That has bus lanes, bike lanes, sidewalks, and driving lanes. So if you think about the Paul Wellstone quote, "We all do better when we all do better," you can apply that to transportation. When everyone has a space on the street, we're all able to get around well, no matter whether you walk, bike, bus, or roll. On the opposite side of that, take a street like Franklin Avenue, which is currently not great for any means of transportation. It's dangerous, it's potholy, it's a mess, and thank you, our County Commissioner Marion Green is here. She has advanced a proposal that will remake Franklin Avenue in the next few years to be a complete street as well.
Great, thank you. I learned a new word, potholy. Okay. This is our last question before your final statements. Would you change the Minneapolis 2050 plan? And if so, how? And if not, why not? Katie, you're first.
I believe this is the 2040 plan. And I was proud to advocate at the state legislature last winter to protect the 2040 plan from the challenge that it was facing from right-wing groups, more conservative groups. And so we have protected the 2040 plan, and it's really important that we did because that is our vehicle to building more housing in this city. What I'm really excited about is planning for the 2050 plan. It's 2025, which means that we are just starting our negotiations around what is our 2050 comprehensive plan going to look like in the city. I would like to see us densify near schools so that we can have more families living near our public schools. I'd like to see us reduce setbacks. I'd like to see us advance some neighborhood commercial uses like corner stores, wine bars, hair salons, things that make it easier for us to have a 15-minute city where you can walk around and shop in your neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth?
Yes, I am supportive of the zoning changes in the 2040 plan. We also need to take into account the impacts that might have in certain in all of our neighborhoods, but we need to increase our density. We need to be able to have more people live in our city, more visitors come to our city, and so we need to really work together in a sustainable way to see this progress. And so I look forward to a rich dialogue about what the 2050 plan looks like, and if there's any tweaks we need to make to the 2040 plan. But I'm excited for the future of our city. I really am, because we want more people to join us. We have world-class parks. We have world-class arts and theater. We have world-class restaurants. And so I'm ready to invite more people to join us, and in whatever way that looks like, and fully support looking at the 2050 when the time comes.
Thank you very much. Now, each candidate will have 1 minute for their closing statements. Elizabeth, you will start.
Well, thank you all for sitting through our event here tonight. It's great to see you all here. It has been a privilege for me to be your park commissioner, and it would be a privilege for me to be your city council member. Thank you for considering all your options, and please know that I will govern in the same way that I have governed on the park board. I will put my heart into learning. I will put my time and energy into the details, because our city deserves it. Our city needs it. We're at a critical point. We need leadership for the next 4 years that'll be willing to step up, do the hard work, and be responsive to the community. I hope that you will consider me for your vote, and I look forward to working together.
Katie?
Thank you all for being here. My time as the Ward 7 City Council member has been a true honor and a privilege. I have championed change for this city. I have championed the workers of our city. I have championed the renters of our city. I have championed the immigrants of our city, the pro-choice community, the LGBTQ community. I have championed all the groups that are most impacted by policies in our city, and the change that I've championed for is likely why I have a challenge. But I'm proud of the change that I've brought about in this community. And as we look towards the next 4 years of the Trump presidency, it's even more important that Minneapolis is able to remain a beacon of progress and a place that people can come for a safe and dignified life. If reelected, I will continue to champion public spaces, keep the streetlights on, keep the buses running, keep our housing affordable, add businesses to our corridors, and invite more people to experience the beauty and the greatness of Ward 7. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidates. That was going to be my last statement. We do have just a couple of thank yous. On behalf of all the co-sponsors, I want to thank our candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve your community. We hope this forum has helped you as voters make a more informed decision with regard to the November 4th election. Remember that we use ranked choice voting, and if you have any questions about that, there's a table in the lobby, and they would be happy to explain it to you, so don't go away without knowing exactly how that works. I especially want to thank the Voter Services Committee from Minneapolis League. They have put in many, many hours to get these forums ready. And I also want to thank the audience. Your participation, your following the rules was wonderful, and it did help with the democratic process. Now we have a challenge for you. We ask that you think about 3 things that you can do to further civic dialogue about the issues and get your friends and neighbors to participate in this important election. The video recording from tonight will be available on the lwvmpls.org website, and editing of the video is authorized only for official media reporting. Footage cannot be used in campaign publicity. And at this point, now you can clap again. Thank you. Nice work, you guys kept to the time. Unbelievable. Wow.